because I track hours in everything. So like whether it's work, stand up, podcast, like I track how many hours, and it's more so to like make sure that I'm putting in, because I'm all about like consistent effort over time.
Yeah.
Like I like to think of it like water and erosion.
Yeah.
Like if you just run water over a rock for a day, nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
Like you would think, oh, I have to use a hammer. But it's like, no, if you run water over this rock for enough time, it will change the Grand Canyon.
There you go.
And so I think of like, if I just put in enough hours and I'm consistently trying to improve my process little by little, 5-10 years from now, something will happen,
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether it becomes just abundantly apparent that I'm just not good enough at all this, and I think that's the kind of thing is like, I'm kind of going off on a little tangent, but this is an interesting concept. I want to hear your thoughts on it. Is one of the, like, I read a lot of, it's funny, like it's weird because I do have a very cynical view of a lot of like the self-help and like all that stuff, but I still read all those books because
they're saying something.
Yeah, it's like some of them are very interesting. I read one called Atomic Habits. That was one of my favorite ones because it was not a lot of fluff of like, you can do it, chase your dreams and do this and work hard and it'll happen. It was more so that, hey, not everybody can do everything, but here is a framework for how to get the most out of what you're trying to do.
Interesting.
And this guy basically, I think his name's James Clear, if I remember correctly. He basically said that when he developed this framework, and what I liked about it is that it took a lot of cool concepts that I was already familiar with, combined them into like an actionable, like informational data set or like a actionable plan. And he said that, like to summarize the part that like, I remember this is like, you were talking about everything being embarrassing. Like in the moment, like I look back, I'm like, oh, so embarrassing. I was reading this part and I was like getting emotional because I was like, damn, that's me. Like, that's what I want to do. Is he said that like he wanted to play professional baseball.
Yeah.
And so he was like undersized and not super good in high school. And so he had to walk onto a team and like work his way onto the starting line. And he's like, if I want to play professionally, I have to get so much better so fast with limited playing time.
Yep.
And so he developed a framework for improving. Now, he never got to play professional baseball. He never got drafted. He just wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
But he said he looks back with total satisfaction because he reached his potential.
Yeah.
And I remember reading that, and I had always struggled to articulate like what drove me in different things. And it was that. And it's less so like, how does my success compare to my peripheries, and how does my success compare to like, achieving, being the best. It's more so like I want to know what I am capable of.
Yeah.
And so it was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Like if I just establish a framework and operate within it, 5-10 years from now, if I'm still doing open mics and barely getting booked on local shows, I just wasn't that good. Like I just didn't have the skill, and because not everybody gets to be funny. But it's like, if I do this, it's like, say that's the reality. It's like, then at least I look back and I'm like, you know what? Like I put in concerted effort over time trying to improve. Just didn't have it. Like I'm just not that funny.
And you're enjoying doing it too.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
You're
fun.
like having a good time. I like that context switch of not comparing yourself to others.
Yeah.
And using this framework to just like be the best version of yourself and being proud of that. I think there's something so important about like finding what you're content with. Mm-hmm. And this framework you're talking about sounds like it like leads you there.
Yeah.
Which is like, yeah. Because if you compare yourself to others, you're never going to be happy.
Ooh, yeah.
Dude, it's so tough.
I still do it all the time.
It's tough not to. It's tough not to. I like that. The idea of just like getting the most out of yourself. Maybe I should read this book because you're like really the third person I've heard mention it.
It's quite good. Nothing in it is conceptually new or reinventing the wheel, but what it does a good job is of taking a lot of abstract concepts and putting them not only in a very like actionable format, but combining them together. And you're like, oh, this is like a framework I could apply to my life right now.
Yeah. And sometimes just hearing something out loud or reading it like helps like recenter and be like, oh yeah, I do need to be doing these things,
That's a good point.
It's like sometimes you get away, you just get caught up in your own life or ignoring all the things you want to be doing. And it's good to like hear it sometimes.